Hello, hello. Welcome back to Almost 30 Podcast. And if you're new, welcome.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. If you're new, happy end of year. Get ready. We always do a whole just makeover at the top of the next year.
Yeah, honestly.
We kind of like roll in. We're like, oh, okay.
Yes. We change up everything all the time. We never stop changing, evolving, and growing. But that's like, I don't know if it's the world today, but when you look at something, one day you're like, this is incredible. And the next day you're like, this exists.
I know. We were just on a call before and it was like, yeah, we'll discuss the rebrand in January. And I was like, we are rebranding.
I know.
Again.
Well, I was like, we're going to refresh things, but also maybe change colors and styles. and then I was like, I guess we're going to be basically rebranding. But I was looking at our cover art too. And I was like, I had brown hair. Like, I was just like, it's like
we can switch out the photo too.
100%. Yeah, whatever. So if you're feeling the need to refresh and rebrand your life, do it. If not, live your life. If that doesn't involve any part of your life, I am jealous.
It does help. Even if you're just like, let me refresh what I wear every day. Let me refresh what I do in my daily routine. It kind of gets a little...
That's why Life Edit's so good. I talk about that in my solo episode that I did on the 21st of December. And I talked a little bit about just like winter solstice and the season and how important the Life Edit is. And the Life Edit was an episode that I did in 2020, I believe. And that was basically all the steps I took to do like a cleanse, reset, clear out of all aspects of my life, which is digital, which is relationships, which is my closet, which is my pantry, just really looking at everything with like a fresh lens of wondering if that's going to be the person, wondering if that's going to be part of the story of the person that you want to be in the future.
Definitely. I mean, you can never like underestimate the power of even just simply cleaning that one drawer.
Yes.
I know that like the Life Edit is so much deeper, but even just on the aesthetics, it's like that one drawer that kind of haunts you where you open it and you get frustrated. And you're like, wait, I don't have to be frustrated every day. Yes. And it clears something else that you can't even really describe. But yeah, it's so, so powerful.
I was listening to the psychotherapist talk and they were talking about, they were in the room with a person, like a client, and they were talking about how this person, wanted to change their life, was like really depressed and anxious and all these things. And they were like, okay, well, what's your house look like? How is your room? And, it was like a pit, just like so messy. And they're like, well, what's holding you back from cleaning your room? And it just like is interesting how we look at like the microcosm really brings up a lot of what's happening in the macrocosm. And that's a lot of the work of, Jordan Peterson really brings up like, if you want to change the world, you have to start by cleaning your room first. And I think in this world today, we look at everything from like the lens of like the grandeur that exists online and social media. And we really don't think about, what it would be like to have a really clean closet or a really clean bedroom or feel like all the clothes in our closet feel really good on us and feel like they fit or, have peace within all of our relationships. I think there's so much that we can do within our life that we have access to, supporting and changing that sometimes we overlook because we're so obsessed with like changing the world or changing, all these things that essentially are usually outside of our control.
Yeah. And it kind of ties into, what we wanted to talk about today, like just around finances, where like I feel like that's always been a mirror for me. Like how if I'm not looking, I have had seasons where I'm like so allergic to looking at my bank account. And that's created more distress and problems than just looking at it. And what's so hard about cleaning the closet? What's so hard about looking at your bank account? And it is such a mental game. And I think there's a lot of like shame there. There's avoidance. There's numbing because we want to do the other thing, whether it's spending money rather than looking at the bank account and just saying, fuck it. But I think like I've noticed such a shift when I've literally just I've kind of muted that voice inside my head that says, don't look at it. It's better that way. And then I'm able to kind of see it all. Just like if you clean your closet and you see everything and you're like, okay, I've organized my socks over here and over here. And now you're able to be like, what do I really need? What is the issue? How can I organize this in a way that makes me feel more confident or peaceful, whatever, however you want to feel. And the money thing has always been something that's like told me more of what's going on in me.
Yes. Totally. I think that's with so much. It's like, and we talked about this in our episode that we did, the stories we tell ourselves, but our problem is not the truth. Our problem is our relationship to the truth. Because, say, for an example, you have $46 in your bank account and I have $0. That is a lot of money for me. But say for you, you're used to having this amount of money. The story you're telling yourself is that $46 is not enough. The story I'm telling myself is that $46 is a lot. So we kind of come into these situations with like truthful, factual things within money and within finances, and then sort of add these stories to it, which is really the most important. But yeah, I remember most of my 20s was sort of not looking at it. And I remember too, I don't know if you ever had this, but when I was in like some debt when I first moved to LA, when I had quit and was like doing all the side jobs. And I remember it was like, I was probably like $7,000 in debt at that time. And I remember like the negative, it's like almost like I forgot about seeing the negative. And I was just like, it became, that becomes the new zero. Where you're like,
Totally.
oh, that's my new zero. And I can see why that happens for so many people. I think the average American has like $500 in their savings and is $6,000 in debt. But it's like, it just makes so much sense because even with emails, when we think about our emails, say a lot of people have like thousands and thousands, and 20,000, it seems like a lot, but it becomes people's zero. And how many times in life are we sort of getting to those limits where the upper limit is changing or the baseline is changing, and we sort of let it happen over time because we just don't face it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely...
Talking about your emails specifically.
Yeah, thank you. That will probably never change unless I completely delete my email.
Sometimes I've thought about having the amazing supportive Maggie and Jillian to like clean up my emails.
Yeah, man. Well, it's just at this point, it's a circus in my email where I'm like, Jesus, I'm signing up for so many, unknowingly, because you're like, you unknowingly sign up for like whatever brand's newsletter, yada, yada. And I'm not good about unsubscribing, but yeah, I think, yeah. Oh yeah. The zero. I just remember being like, oh, well, to the point of like being negative in your account. I remember when I was living in New York, also in my 20s. And I just remember comparing, just being like, okay, well, negative 200 isn't as bad as what I was last month. The negative something, just having these moments of like, oh my goodness. But also, I do think it was like double-edged. It like definitely protected me from not having a mental breakdown.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So true.
But then also it definitely didn't motivate me to get better at it. I was kind of like giving myself those like, it's okay, it was better than last month.
100%. And at a point, I can also see too where it happens where you're like, what is the point? What's the point? What happens at zero? And I think the way our credit system's structured, the way our financial system's structured is that it's like, there's sometimes, the credit card companies are making so much money off of interest from you, and banks and financial institutions are making so much money off of interest that they don't really care if you're in debt or you're in credit card debt at all. And I remember my credit card had a year of like no interest payments. And I was like, cool. So I remember the first time that I started to get interest payments on the credit card debt that I had. And it was like 25, it was so much money. And I literally I was like, I could not believe it. And also I just couldn't believe that this happens to so many people. And not that it wasn't like, I can't believe it's happening to me, blah, blah, blah. But I just was like, wow, I see this. I see how bad this is and how detrimental it can be to really get yourself in credit card debt. And I was like, dang, in my life, I would love to have so much money where I could support people that I love if they're ever in credit card debt to like get out of credit card debt. We actually had a good friend of Justin's who lived in New York, this couple, another one of Justin's friends was in really, really deep credit card debt and they were really well off. So they supported him and gave him the money to pay off his credit card debt. And then he paid them back monthly every single month. So I was like,
Wow.
I would love to support people in doing that because it just becomes this like bottomless pit where you cannot, you cannot get yourself out of. It's bad. And I remember my paychecks too would be like a certain amount of money. And then I remember one time I bought Louboutins for like $700. I'm like, okay, that leaves you with like $100 to spend for 2 weeks. Like, and I'd be like, it's like a game.
Of
like,
course,
okay, I'm going to spend $10 at Trader Joe's for a bag of, it's like, dude, there's like the mental gymnastics that you have to go through it. But I think what I've realized within my relationship to money, my relationship to anything, my relationship to my body, to dieting, to relationships is that, one habit, whether that's looking at your credit card statement every month or whether that's saving $5 a week, doesn't change the problem. And I think for both of us, we know that for me, the habit of I invest money every single month into both my cryptocurrency account and into my public with stocks, and then also into Vanguard where I have my 401ks. And it's not like me doing that has solved everything. It's like the relationship to all of that is most important. And I think everyone that's listening to this podcast sort of is on the same page that we know that it's all about the energetics behind the things that we're doing and not just like the things that we're doing. So understanding our relationship with money and sort of where it comes from, how we can heal it, is the very baseline and the most important part. And then after that, it's the steps that you can take or the habits that you can take or the tactical ways in which you can support yourself.
Yeah. Lacey Phillips' work, To Be Magnetic, they talk about like a high worth choice and a low worth choice. And I feel like I've been more in tune with that because of her work, just thinking about, okay, so what is the high worth choice in this situation, whether it's indulging in a massage. This month, say I'm used to like indulging in self-care and I kind of overspend on self-care. Is it spending money on that massage or is it paying my credit card off in full? And for me, if that were the case, like that was definitely, I feel like that was like my life in New York, chapter 1. Because I was like running myself into the ground. And so I would like overspend on things to make me feel better.
Yes.
But the high worth choice for me would be to pay off my credit card in full because like that's not something that I was doing and it's something that I would want to improve upon and kind of show myself that I can and build confidence around. And even though self-care sounds great and you should take care of yourself, it's like that in that case would be like a lower self-worth choice because I had always overspent it on that stuff. So it's like becoming more aware of that for me has been really powerful. And then connecting it to like the origin of the story. And usually it's our parents, right? Or whoever raised us or kind of modeled those money stories to us. And yeah, for me, I just kind of had to look at that and be really honest about it because I think there can be a lot of shame around money and just kind of how people are around money. And just get really real about it and know that it's not like a life sentence. Like this isn't you forever. Like you can absolutely kind of with those actions, whether big or small, really begin to not only change like the neural pathways, but begin to change like, the habits of the everyday that you might be doing subconsciously.
Yeah. I think that's an important point about the future you. And I think, as far as like consciousness goes, we're, from what we know, the only species that thinks about future selves or future versions of ourselves or thinks about the future. And I think that's like the biggest part of our evolution or even evolving in our Saturn return and past it, where you're like, oh, I actually want to trade the pleasure that I could get today from this self-care massage, shopping, whatever it is, and give myself peace over the long term by paying off my credit card. And I think that's something that I've had to get better and better at because I've been someone that hasn't I do that, but there have been a lot of areas in my life where I haven't really done that, where it's like I actually would rather put this $100 away towards a house that I want to potentially buy or rent in the future rather than buying this shirt or whatever. So I think over time we get more familiar with making decisions for our longer term selves or making decisions with that sort of consciousness to think about the future versions of ourselves. But I think it's really, really important to become more friendly with that future version and tending to what they need so that we can be more mindful as we move ourselves closer to that like ideal version.
Yeah. What have been some like ways in which you feel like, whether it's tools or practices that have just kind of tightened up everything for you? I know you've always been, I feel like you grew up with a pretty good money story, but even just as an adult and making more money and being in business.
Yeah. I think my money story was that it will definitely cause fights in the family. So I was always like, okay, I need to have money. I need to be making money. So I started working at like when I was 13, I was working at this like nursing home and then I was babysitting. So I started working at a young age. And I realized, I think the very most important thing for me that I realized that I'm glad I realized through working was that money for me meant freedom. And money for me meant that I could do what I want in quotes. So I could go to whoever's house, order a pizza, go to the mall, do all these things. So money was really important for me for freedom when I felt like I didn't really have as much freedom as I wanted being younger. And then also, I loved to shop being in Ohio. I was like a little shopaholic, which was like what I thought was an identity, part of my character. And you were a master shopper.
I was master shopper. So bitch, sit down.
So I was like peasant shopper. Lindsay was master shopper. On her AOL screen name was master shopper. I was like, just always at the mall. And I did realize too that in buying clothes, that was also like a part of my expression. So money also meant that I could express myself. I could feel good about myself in the way that I was doing that at that phrase. So getting really granular about the things that money was allowing you to do or not allowing you to do or making you feel. So money meant freedom, but it was also complicated because my family had certain situations that were going on that caused just some angst or riff or different sorts of ways in which they wanted to spend or not spend or jobs being lost, et cetera. So it was pretty complicated, but I was really grateful that for the most part, freedom was the main thing that I really got from it. So I've had a stronger money story in that sense because I always felt like the harder I worked, the more that I could make, which was true through serving and the things that I was doing and even through our business today. And I think the most important parts and phases of my money journey was reading Ramit's book. I think Ramit's book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Ramit's been on our podcast twice. He's incredible. And a lot of the tips in that were tactical, but also about giving yourselves space in your life where you could have no limits on your spending. And that for me was helpful because much like dieting, and I keep bringing this back to dieting because I think there's so many parallels. When you are on a diet and you're always restricting and you don't have a place in which you feel like you can allow yourself to nurture yourself and nourish yourself and really enjoy food, because food is meant to be delicious and amazing and fun, then you will eventually binge. So in this case, you will eventually binge and overspend. And for me, that was overspending. That was just kind of blowing it all out. So when I allowed myself that space in my life where I could have no limits, which is food, for me, that's food. I love to buy really healthy, high quality, nourishing food. It allowed me to feel less pressure on the other areas of my life with spending. So I think that tip of having one area in your life that's really meaningful to you and having no limits on it, which will allow you to feel more balanced in all the other areas of your life.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, that book, I still keep it and I still kind of just open it every once in a while to remind me of like, there are just very tactical ways in which it's either like pay off debt or you can kind of consolidate your credit cards. I definitely use that.
Yeah, credit card consolidation is huge. And I think also paying off that tip, Nicole Lappin has talked to us about paying off your credit card first over anything, over even having a savings is huge because the amount of that you're paying on credit card debt each month is insane.
Yep, completely. And I think for me, just getting really, really clear and confident about like my personal systems. So whether, you mentioned it earlier, it's like automatic transfers to crypto, automatic transfers to stock investment, automatic transfers to your savings, even like I have like I've had Digit forever. I don't know if it's the best out there, but it's just like basically you have goals where it's like, oh, I want to save X amount for a trip next summer. I want to save X amount for a wedding. I want to save X amount for whatever. And then it basically algorithmically will just put a certain amount away based upon what's in your account. You can do limits on what they take out. And it's super, super helpful. And what I've really gleaned too is like the power of continuously being a student. So, for example, like on public.com, that's why I love it so much, because the community aspect, one, makes me feel like, okay, I'm not the only one that it's like asking questions. And two, like it kind of gives me confidence to know that like I can start investing, for example, in the stock market, like with any amount of money. And I feel like it stops a lot of people because they feel like they need to have tens of thousands of dollars to start investing in the stock market or in crypto. And that's just not true. And so a lot of my questions and like self-perceived challenges were really like answered and cleared when I like just dove into the app, into the community aspect of the app. And that just taught me so much about like keeping my shame, like breathing life into my shame rather than being like, you know what, I'm going to become like a curious student. Everyone started somewhere. And I love public for that reason.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. The evolution of using technology for me has been huge. Like having reoccurring investments go to my public.com stock portfolio, having reoccurring investments go to my public crypto accounts has been so helpful. So whether it's $50 or $5,000 a month, whatever it is, I think that's made the biggest impact for me, finding ways to automate. And I really love that. I've been able to do that within public.com. And the crypto conversation's cool. And I'm really grateful that, public also has crypto investing. Justin, my husband is really into Web3 and crypto and all of that. And he has been, since I met him. I remember, 8 years ago sitting in New York, and he's like, I have this thing called ETH, blah, blah, blah. And he's like talking about ETH. So I've also become someone that's been investing in cryptocurrency, mostly Ethereum, some Cardano, Bitcoin, and then just whatever else kind of tickles my fancy at the time. But I love that public makes it easy to kind of consolidate everyone's interest in that. And because it's so community focused, it's nice because you can sort of understand it through conversations rather than like reading things that sometimes are hard to translate. So it's like going on the app, you're like following your friends, like our friend Milana is on there. You can be like, okay, what is she trading? What is she interested in? And I really love the social aspect. And I feel like that's like a trend now in every space to make everything social. They're like, this is dog walking, but social. This is like, like camping, but social. And you're like, I don't want my whole life to be social, but I really like this part because it makes the barrier to entry so much lower. And then I think for me, one of the most important things about public and why I really wanted to work with them was because they don't sell your information. So they don't sell any of the trades that you're doing to market makers or other investing apps. And I think if, we all recall what had happened with Robinhood and, the AMC sort of debacle issue, scandal situation that happened. A lot of the issue was behind the fact that Robinhood is selling a lot of your trades, or they're selling their trades to market makers. So they're making money on the back end by selling your information. And I really appreciate that public doesn't do that. I think that's like something that's very important to me because I hate when it's happened so much when it's like, I think one thing I've realized in my life definitely is that free is never free as much as we think. And I love to receive and I love to be like, free is never free. There always is something, some data is being sold or something is happening. So the fact that they support, fair and transparent investing is something that I'm really excited about our community being able to dig into.
Definitely. And I feel like the vibe, the vibe on Public, kind of inspired in a way, like even just having conversations with friends. And we've started to have that more often within our group of friends. And I think there's something super, super empowering about that where, we bring our own expertise, our gifts, our resources, our questions, and are able to really like lift one another up, kind of rise together. So yeah, I just love the vibe. And the app is super easy just on that note. Like it's super easy to navigate, which I've been more and more picky about because it's so frustrating. Yeah. It's like hard to kind of navigate an app. I don't understand a lot of what's happening and I'm learning. So I want the app experience to be super, super seamless. And it is. So
yeah. I think that's a great point. Just like as a last thing is having an open and honest dialogue with friends, about it. So Lindsay and I are part of like a group called Crypto Coven with some of our dearest friends, Milana, Natalia, Letitia, Crystal, Lindsay, and I. And we speak very openly and honestly about money and numbers and money shadow and what we're going through and all of these things in an effort to support one another in building the wealth and the wealth consciousness that we desire. And I feel like it's been really, really powerful coming from different situations and places in our lives to come together with that intention. And I've really loved sort of breaking the barrier of that belief previously that you couldn't talk about money with girls, or women. Like it was like something that we had to be competitive about or, hide behind the scenes. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, truly. Oh,
I just wanted to share as a last thing, I was going to say, they can edit this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so just sort of to summarize before we head into the episode, when Lindsay and I were talking, really the biggest mistake that people make around money is thinking that just one action or step or one investment or one time looking at their account is going to make a difference. And we all know that it's really the energetics behind it, understanding the relationship with money that is most important. There's so many things that can affect your relationship with money. It could be religion, gender, culture, childhood upbringing, education. There's so many aspects. So thinking about the ways in which those parts have influenced your relationship with money are huge. We suggest journaling or doing a to be magnetic practice to identify your current relationship with money, being really honest, being really upfront, maybe doing some meditation to bring through some situations in your life that may lead you to understanding your relationship with money better. And then you can also identify a version of a healthy relationship with money that you seek to have. So is that being able to spend unlimited on vacations? Is that owning a home? Is that having a certain amount in your account? What would it feel like to have a really healthy relationship with money? You can also list out any unhealthy financial thoughts or practices that you do. Maybe it's overspending. Maybe it's keeping a balance on your credit card. Maybe it's binge spending, whatever it is, just writing those out really honestly and openly so that you can take a look at those and just kind of take the energy and charge from them. You can also decide what healthy financial thoughts or practices you want to adapt. Maybe that's different affirmations. Maybe that's different ways in which you operate with money in the world, but just really thinking about some tactical ways in which you can enhance your relationship with money. And then as a last thing, just really figuring out the roadmap for you to implement any changes in your life. So what are going to be the next best steps for you to implement these changes so that you can have a better relationship with money and everlasting wealth in your life?
And it can happen quicker than you think. I think we look at some of these like hurdles or things that have built up over time, like poor money habits or finance habits. And it's like, actually, it could change quicker than you think. And so kind of just leaving room for that possibility, I think gives you a lot of confidence.
I agree.
today we have on Katie Perry. She is the VP of Marketing of Public.com. And this was just a really great conversation around financial wellness, around investing, especially as women stepping into this space, the Public.com app itself. And I loved it. She's a wealth of information and is super passionate about investing and has been for years. So it was actually really cool to kind of like track her journey with investing. It was super, super inspiring.
Yeah. And I love that we talked about the gender gap within investing. So talking about women and underrepresented and underrepresented and underserved communities in investing, and really what we can do to bridge the gap to get more people investing so that they can build long-term generational wealth. So I'm hopeful that some of our stories and our tips were really helpful for you at the beginning of this conversation. It's always a pleasure to serve you and to be in conversation with you. And I know that you'll enjoy this. Would love to share ways that you can get involved with Public.com.
Yeah. And for anyone that wants to try out Public.com, you can receive $10 in free stock in one of the 9 popular stocks when you go to pblc.co/almost30. That's pblc.co/almost30. Thank you all so much for listening. If you're new to Almost 30, we talk about so much. We talk about spirituality, self-development. This one is a financial wellness episode, and we're just hoping to support you in your evolution and make you feel a little less alone. Make sure you're subscribed to Almost 30. Just click subscribe, and every episode will be in your inbox. Well, I'm so happy you're here, Katie. It's been really interesting over the last year. I feel like you've been investing for a little bit longer than I have, but when we heard about and started using Public, we were like, oh wow, okay. Like I felt personally, I was like, this is less intimidating. So I'm really excited about today's conversation because I think a lot of our audience is curious. I feel like it's more in conversation now, just kind of like not only managing our money, but investing. So yeah, this is going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, I'm always surprised when I converse with our community about like where they are in the process. And I feel like a lot of people don't even know where to start with it. And it just feels like one of those things that it's like too intimidating where you're kind of like, okay, I'll do this later. I'm going to figure it, it's just something also too that I think women, because we've always assumed that men do the investing or they kind of manage the money or they have access to it, so they are able to manage it. So women are just kind of like, oh, maybe I'll learn later. And for men, it's more so in the zeitgeist when they're younger to start investing and start doing all these things. What have you seen with Public in your, experience with this of women's reaction and like how women approach investing differently?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a psychological barrier to entry for a lot of women. And it's not that surprising. I mean, if you think about just historically, like it wasn't that long ago that women couldn't open a bank account on their own. And then you have images in pop culture, all those Wall Street movies in the 80s. Like it was always white men in their 40s and 50s, sort of the power broker, sort of sharky kind of image. And that's just intimidating. Like if you just get hammered with those images over time, you're like, okay, this isn't for me, or I don't know enough to do this. And that's sort of the reason Public was founded, is to kind of like break out of those exclusive circles and create an environment that just felt like a different culture around the stock market. And for us, we're 40% women in the community. And that's always been really important to us, even when we were growing the company, like in terms of where we were acquiring users. We were going to different places and groups instead of just saying, okay, we're going to go to this community of traders, because that would have just reinforced those sort of patterns. And so we do see that when women join the community, having that social piece, seeing other women in there, it just reinforces that this is normal. And to your point about it being mainstream, it's completely mainstream now. So the curiosity is there. We just kind of got to bridge that gap and get over that psychological hump that a lot of people have.
Yeah, the social piece is so interesting. I'm curious, like as Public was just being designed and refined, it's like, did you come up against certain regulations around like how it could be talked about, how this information could be shared in a social setting?
Yeah, I think the perspective on social from the beginning was always social as an educational vehicle. So there's other obviously investing communities. There's even investing apps that have social features, but the function that the social serves is much different. So the tone of our community is much more knowledge sharing, collaboration. We're primarily long-term investors. So about 90% of our members say they're long-term investors. So you don't get that sort of stock chart talk that you would see in some of these niche communities, and you get broader conversations. And when the norms are more about like, hey, I'm following this trend, here's what I learned, what do you all think, and not influencing people, it really changes the dynamic. And that's the dynamic we have. We are in a regulated industry, so we do have a lot of like policies in place. We have community guidelines that everyone has to accept upon signing up. Some of those are just about general respect, treating others with respect, arguing the idea, not the person. And we're also very mindful of, good information sharing on the app and monitoring for anything that is potentially against those guidelines.
That's I like that. Arguing the idea, not the person. That's a good one. I kind of want to like take that as like a broader stroke with any social media. But for people that, maybe aren't investing at all, don't really know where to start, what would you suggest for them as like a first start?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when people first come in, they always immediately jump to what stock should I buy? And there's so much more that goes before that because nobody's in the same circumstance. Nobody is kind of the same. I'm very risk averse as an investor. I would rather do slow and steady, long term. There's other people that like risk and want to take more risk on. So I'm not a financial advisor, but financial advisors will say to kind of look at your own financial situation, make sure you have a solid bedrock of savings, and invest with what you can. I will say, with the changes in investing, with what's called fractional investing, you can own a small slice of a share. So in the past, if you wanted to buy a stock like Amazon, it's currently trading at $3,000 for one share. Back in the day, you had to have $3,000 in your bank account to even get in on Amazon. And with what Fractional's done is given people the ability to start small and start that learning journey much sooner. And then as they build their confidence and understanding, they can kind of grow with their portfolio. So starting small is something we see all the time. There's a lot of college students in our community. They'll put $20 in and create a little portfolio with a few stocks in there, stock slices. And then they're learning and going, but they're not having to put too much skin in the game to start. So I think it's good to kind of understand yourself and like what makes you feel good. And people have different relationships with money too, which is a whole other thing. And then just understand you can start small. It's totally cool. You can build over time and, there's no pressure to dive in, immediately.
Mm-hmm. And on the app, I'm curious, like, Ken, and this is for our listeners who haven't been on public before, but are there different ways that people can kind of find their like comfortable niche of the way they want to talk about it? So are there more like advanced conversations, or how do you like categorically kind of divide that in a way?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one community, but then there's communities within the community. So we'll have like hashtags that you can follow, or you can participate in yourself. Some of the conversations on the app are more kind of sophisticated assessments of an industry, and people will be comparing different companies. Some are about just holistic financial wellness, and you can find the people that kind of speak to you and where you're at and find your sort of tribe within the community. But I think the blend of conversations is so healthy because even for a sophisticated investor, having someone talking about, emotional relationships with money and sharing insight there, it's still important and valuable. And that's one of my favorite things about the community. It's not just about investing as you think about it. It's sort of about your relationship with money and how investing fits within everything else you have going on in life.
What are some of the trends in people's emotional relationship with money that you've seen?
We've seen a lot of conversations around just how different that is for different people. Someone a few weeks ago, we have a poll feature, and she asked, money makes you feel blank. And one was scared, one was powerful, one was in control, one was guilty. And it was really interesting just seeing the range of feelings people have. And a lot of that we inherit, and just understanding how money makes you feel is really important too, as you're kind of starting to invest. And so it's everyone, that's kind of what you see when you have a more diverse community, people coming from different places. And that's just great from a representation point of view too, where you go in and you see other people who also have trepidations about money and you don't feel like an outsider.
Mm-hmm. How does it make you feel? What's your word?
I think for me, I would say in control.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I associate money with like independence.
Yes.
And that's that kind of, I went to a seminar, actually, there's this woman who was amazing and she kind of studies this and she talks about how a lot of like immigrants have that mindset. And like my mom's family immigrated here and like, I can kind of start to parse like that feeling of money being a tool for control of your life, independence. And I was talking to someone else who grew up with a lot of wealth and she was saying money made her feel guilty because she always had it. And as she got older, she met people who didn't grow up that same way. So it's really interesting to unpack that.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a trend in what your users are investing in?
Yeah, we see that a lot of people might come in, looking for one thing to buy, and they'll diversify over time, which is really the kind of behavior we want to promote in the app. A lot of the conversations around like meme stocks, a lot of pundits are kind of poo-pooing that and saying, oh, these people don't know what they're doing. They're just going to buy one stock. They're gambling. What we see is that people have the propensity to evolve. And I really see the meme stock movement for a lot of people is just a new entry point to learning. So my entry point to learning about stocks was my 401k. I had no idea what was even in there for like 5 years. But once I started digging, that's how I started learning. So people are learning in different ways. And we see that as people engage in the community, participate in some of our features, like we have these live shows that go over market news, they start to kind of evolve as investors over time. And that's kind of what we're trying to do as a business.
And for anyone that doesn't know, what are meme stocks?
Meme stocks are stocks that are of companies where within social media, groups of people will rally together and collectively make moves on the stock. It kind of all came to a head with the GameStop saga, if you would call it, last February, where you had a lot of people in the Reddit community rallying around GameStop, which at the time was, essentially a failing business or a declining business. And when you had people talking on social media, they could actually together have a lot of power. And that was completely new. Usually the power dynamic on Wall Street was around what's known as institutional investors, which are banks and large financial institutions, which have a lot of capital and a lot of power. And you saw people rallying together to sort of counter that. So it's basically just when there's some sort of movement around a stock that might seem random, and it's people rallying. And those situations tend to be volatile. And we actually put safety labels on meme stocks in our app. So people know, like, this could change really quickly. The tides of the sentiment of the people rallying around this could shift and the stock could change more than other stocks. So it's, again, the context is important for a lot of people because I think there was a meme stock skit on SNL. That might be how someone started learning about this stuff. Again, it's great. We just want to make sure they're in a responsible environment.
Yeah. What other features? So you mentioned like that kind of safety, just kind of little flag for people. Like, are there other differentiating features of the app that really help people to, want to learn more and just kind of get their bearings as they learn more about investing?
Yeah, we're really trying to build a different experience around investing. So there's a lot of places where you can buy and sell stocks right now, like new ones every day. We want to kind of build an environment around it that's different and educational. So we have these daily audio shows in the app anyone can listen in on. We have one every morning at 9:15, right before the opening bell, where credible financial journalists will run down the events of the day in a really accessible tone so people can kind of set the mood for the day, understand what's going on. And we'll have multiple shows throughout the week on different trends. Could be cannabis investing, could be esports, really just to help people understand. We also have this town hall feature where our members can ask questions directly of public company CEOs who participate. So one of our first ones was Whitney Wolfe Herd from Bumble. She was answering questions about the company from our members. And that's completely new too, because usually the retail investor or everyday investors don't have that opportunity. We're going to continue to kind of innovate around that experience. I will say also, we don't have some of the more complex trading tools that tend to be a little riskier for newbies in our app. So things like margin trading, which means you're borrowing money to invest. options trading. They're a little more sophisticated. And since we're mostly new investors, we don't have those features.
What are the features that you do have for those, or like things that new investors can kind of look forward to?
Yeah, well, obviously the community is a huge differentiating factor and a place to learn. We offer something called long-term portfolio, where you can actually move an investment you own into a special section of your portfolio, and we'll remind you if you try to sell it earlier that you meant to hold it on longer. And so things like that, it's really normalized in the community to educate yourself and collaborate with others, and that's sort of the main behavior. So for new people, it's really great. They feel like they're coming into a place where they're welcome and they're comfortable, and people feel okay asking questions.
Oh, I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Array. So we have been using Array for months now and are obsessed. I take my Array Bloat supplement and my Array Calm supplement every single night without fail. My digestion has never been better, so this works fast. So if you eat something that you normally get bloated, perhaps you have a bit too much kale, or maybe you ate the pizza crust or whatever, their bloat supplement is absolutely incredible. So I love Array. They have a team of naturopaths that are formulating each of their formulas, and they just are potent and they work so well. So the bloat capsules in particular have 5 herbs and a fruit-based digestive enzyme. It targets every possible cause for bloating, so you feel relief super quick. And their ingredients are sourced from the most potent part of every plant, so it's going to work in under an hour. Trust me, just watch. It's incredible. I also take Array Calm. So I take this before bed, and this just helps me wind down. 4 herbs, minerals, and vitamins, which help relax the body and mind. And it just lowers my cortisol. And I just noticed that I am like resting and digesting at the end of the day. And it feels amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I take the Calm after dinner as well. So this will decrease anxiety and panic, lower stress, better digestion. You know, when you're stressed, you don't digest well. So this will really help your digestion and promotes restful sleep, which I can attest to. My sleep has never been better. So please try Array. I absolutely love their products. They came out with the bloat latte recently. Check that out. That is their bloat formula in latte form, and it's delicious. So go to array.com. That's ARRAE.com. Use the code almost30 for 10% off your first purchase. That's ARRAE.com. Use the code almost30 for 10% off your first purchase. I think the mark of a great wellness brand for me is when I recommend it to people who don't normally take the wellness products, things that are really, really good for you, but then they try it and they're obsessed with it. And that one for me is Athletic Greens. I've basically recommended it to everyone I know, and it's so great to hear how unreal people are feeling. They're feeling amazing, energized. Their digestion is great. Their skin is awesome. Like just everything is moving and grooving and feeling so good. So I'm excited, if you haven't tried Athletic Greens, for you to try. This is an incredible brand. This particular blend has over 75 vitamins and minerals that are crucial for a well-functioning nervous system and a fundamental building block of a strong immune system. I've noticed my immune system is in tip-top shape since being on Athletic Greens for the last couple years. Also in the blend is dairy-free probiotics. So this is going to support your gut health, enhance nutrient absorption, and strengthen your immune system. It also has prebiotics, which are special types of fiber that feed those probiotics so they can multiply and establish an ongoing presence in your digestive system. It also has adaptogens and antioxidants, which is just an amazing class of herbs that really help support stress reduction. It will also help in your sleep and just overall decreasing your mental fatigue and physical fatigue. This formula is so pure, and the quality of the ingredients is top of the line. Most of their ingredients are sourced from New Zealand. So join the movement of athletes, life leads, moms and dads, first timers, and everyone in between in getting essential nutrition in just one scoop. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you an immune supporting free 1 year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase if you visit athleticgreens.com/almost30 today. This is actually major. So this is a 1 year supply of vitamin D. And then they're going to give you 5 free travel packs, which I love. I bring with me everywhere. I just put them easily in a bottle of water. So please, athleticgreens.com/almost30, athleticgreens.com/almost30 to give Athletic Greens a try and get your free vitamin D supply, 1 year vitamin D supply, and 5 free travel packs. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Going to therapy is truly routine maintenance for your mental and emotional wellness. And I've found that it just prevents the bigger issues down the road. And it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. I honestly believe that everyone should go to therapy. And I'm really excited to talk to you about BetterHelp because it is an affordable way to get a therapist conveniently online. So BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So you're investing in so many other things. So now it's time to invest in your mind, your mental health, your emotional health and well-being. So we're excited to offer you 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/almost30. That's BETTERHELP.com/almost30 for 10% off your first month. Ever since I went off birth control a few years ago, I have been on a mission to get better periods every single month. And what I mean by that is that we're not really supposed to be experiencing these terrible PMS symptoms. It means something is out of balance in our bodies. And our friend Elisa Vitti of Flow Living has talked about this on 2 podcast episodes that we've had with her. So please check those out. But I am just absolutely blown away by the cycle syncing supplement kit that Elisa has created. So this is basically a targeted nutraceutical for each phase of your cycle. So it's super specific. So not sure if you knew, but your follicular phase, for example, can bring super low energy. The ovulatory phase can bring breakouts and ovary pain. The luteal phase can bring cravings and mood swings. And the menstrual phase, which I'm actually in right this moment, can bring cramps and reduced immunity. So this is a curated collection of nutrients, herbs, and superfoods that will help you to stay energized, focused, and you will experience fewer period symptoms. So this is female biohacking for bleeders done properly. And you just take one every day for the phase you're in. So it's super simple. I have noticed a difference in my energy, my skin. I've reduced bloating, and my mental clarity is so much better when I am using the cycle syncing supplement kit. I also wanted to point you to the other kit that I am using from Flow Living, which is the Balance by Flow Living. So this is really going to support the balancing of your hormones. So these are essential micronutrients. Basically, think of it as an insurance policy against endocrine disruptive things that we are doing every day, knowingly or unknowingly. I have just loved using these. There is the Replenish, which is a magnesium supplement, the Energize, which is a B complex, Gutsy, which is dairy-free probiotics, the Detox, and the Harmonize. So you will have a full support system in balancing your hormones and just feeling so good. I've specifically noticed that the Energize energize of the Balance Supplement Kit. The B vitamins, this is all I'll need because it truly, truly, truly has boosted my mood. It's really helped with my sex drive. So it provides adrenal support to make the right cortisol to DHEA ratio. And I just feel like my adrenal fatigue has improved so much. So for our listeners, super excited for you to try Flow Living, the cycle syncing supplement kit, as well as the Balance by Flow Living supplement kit. You're going to love it. Go to flowliving.com and you can use our code almost30 for 15% off all Flow Living products or programs with the code. So that's flowliving.com. Use the code almost30 for 15% off all products and programs with code almost30. Our audience is very interested in health and wellness and self-development. Have you seen any trends in that space and kind of specific companies that are really kind of like buzzing and on the rise?
Yeah, this definitely isn't investment advice. I'll tell you generally a lot of the things I see sort of popping. In the pandemic, a lot of people were talking about Peloton.
Oh, yes.
Stay-at-home fitness.
So
that was a big one. More recently, Lululemon, they greatly exceeded their revenue targets. They had an earnings call a few days ago. And so that was another one that people were really discussing. And what's interesting about kind of what you bring up about health and wellness is when the conversations in the community are broader, people can kind of bring their own lived experience to those conversations. So there might be a boutique fitness trainer in there talking about what they're seeing, or someone who works in sports. And there's things that we all have in our lives that are totally applicable to our decisions as investors, whether it's in work or personal life. Might be a product you have firsthand experience with. Oatly went public this year. A lot of people talking about Oatly. Someone mentioning they went to Starbucks, they were sold out. So it's anecdotal sort of stuff, but it's a good starting point. You can look to the things you're interested in and do research in that space to get started.
Does Public have, like you mentioned 401k stuff previously. Are they only for trading and buying and selling stocks, or is there other things?
For now, it's just a brokerage account where you're actively investing in stocks. We also have ETFs, which are essentially baskets of stocks, which beginners love. You might say, okay, I'm generally interested in streaming media platforms. There's ETFs that will take a bunch of companies in that space, bundle it together. And for beginners, the benefit is you don't necessarily need to pick a winner. You don't need to pick one company. There's companies that are curating these lists that are sort of diversified within that space.
So cool. I guess you personally, what has been like your greatest stride since really being so in this space and investing yourself? Like, how have you felt like you've grown as an investor?
I was very fortunate, which is why I took this job, actually. So when I was 18, my father actually sat me down on a Sunday for like 2 hours. And I remember being like, oh God. And he like opened up Vanguard and I'm like, oh, here we go. But that was just looking back, when you're young, you like those moments happen and you're like, oh, Dad. But he really he showed me how to do it. He taught me the basics and he empowered me and said, you can do this for yourself. Here's why it's important. And I realized as I got older that moment really doesn't happen for most people. A lot of people don't grow up around this stuff. We actually just, in a survey we pulled, 56% of people who said they started investing in the last 3 years said they were a first-generation investor. Their parents didn't own stocks. And on top of that, they don't teach this stuff in school, which is also insane. And so I just kind of saw that as like, I was really lucky to have that moment. And I wanted to be part of building something that would create that experience for more people. And that's sort of the reason I never worked in financial services before this job. And I don't know if I would have if it wasn't this exact opportunity and mission.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, and it was with Vanguard. My parents were like, and we used to take like, if I ever got money for Christmas or my birthday, my mom would take half of it and be like, we're putting this in your account. And I would lose my mind. I'm like, what do you mean?
I need to go to the mall.
I know. I'm like, $30 is like leaving. And I remember I got $100. I forget how old I was. And I went to the bank and I had $100 bill, and I brought it up to the bank, and I was like, here's my $100. I'm investing it. And my mom had just told me what banks do. She's like, you put your money in, they give it to other people. But if you need your money out, and I was like, I don't want you to give this to anybody else. I want you to keep this back here, please. And they were like, okay, we'll keep the $100 back there for you. I was like, this is not going to anybody else. I don't know how this is working. But it is really important, I think, for any women that are listening that are moms or, raising kids. It's really important, although kids are like, oh my gosh, I roll, that you do talk to them about credit, you talk to them about money, you talk to them about investing, and hopefully create an environment where it feels like it's not, they're not doing anything wrong, or, even depending on your financial status, just making it like a comfortable conversation for them and to invest.
Yeah, I think over time, money has become less taboo, which is good. I definitely grew up in a family we never talked about money. And I think in some cases, of course, like certain conversations around money, I think are rude. But money topics generally, they're actually interesting too. And I think we have a lot of members that tell us that when they're kind of in public, they'll have their kids sit down with them and kind of walk through how it's working, maybe let their kids kind of offer opinions. Like, you can't use the app under 18, obviously. They're just kind of there on the side. But yeah, it's actually really interesting stuff when you bust it out of these like little Wall Street circles. Like, I was never into that culture at all, but talking about businesses and trends, it's actually really interesting. And now there's so much intersection between like entertainers, celebrities, athletes, and like building businesses that it's just more, people can grasp it much better. And the role models they're following, whether it's their favorite sports team or artists, like Rihanna just became a billionaire. Like, you see the people you admire being very like multifaceted and have that side of them. And I think that's one thing the generations coming in will have. That's such an asset, that the creators they're following, whether they're YouTubers or TikTokers, they're actually building empires on the side and giving younger people that entrepreneurial bug.
Yeah, it would be cool for like public to support some sort of like pre-18 education of, it's almost like an into the app experience, but it's also just so cool because I was someone who didn't learn about any of this ever. So it was always so intimidating, and it just like, the runway becomes so long. You're like, I can't take off until I learn all of these things. I guess what is next for public? Like, what can users look forward to?
We're launching crypto soon, which has been very, very in demand. I'm really excited about it because I think everything we were able to do with stock market investing in terms of making it less intimidating, making it less toxic, making it more diverse, like that is even more so needed in crypto, in my opinion. I work in financial services, and sometimes I'll see crypto conversations on Twitter or something, and I'm like, ugh, like no. So I think it's almost like amplified that intimidation with crypto. It's much harder to understand. You're not analyzing companies, it's technologies, and there's blockchain, and there's so much to unpack on one side. And then there's, so much hype on the other side. And when you have that much hype, it's really important to kind of balance that with the educational piece, which is what we'll be doing. So that's coming very soon. Working on a ton of more features around how to deliver educational content in innovative ways. People just aren't watching CNBC anymore. They're not getting the information in the same way. So we want to build those opportunities for them, and you'll see a lot more of that in the future.
Cool.
Yeah, with crypto, it's so interesting because it's like there's such a social media element to it. Like with the GameStop thing, there was like this whole social media movement. And then with crypto, there is this social media conversation. And I feel like it is mostly driven by even white men still.
Yep.
And I didn't even realize the other day when I was like buying something on crypto, I didn't even realize what it was. And my husband, Justin, was like, oh, it basically the company is looking to do this. I was like, it's a company? Yeah. I was like, it's a thing?
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, what do you mean? Like, I literally was like, money in space. Like, don't even know what it's turning into. And I didn't know that they actually were planning or to do something as a company that you invest in crypto. It was something I was like, oh, too much. And even with investing, sometimes I'm like, it's a little too much. I'll kind of just invest here and kind of move on. But crypto is like way out there. What, I guess for anyone listening, what is cryptocurrency?
Sure. I'm definitely not a crypto expert, so I'll try not to. It's a digital currency essentially that is there's always like founders, there's a company behind it, and there's a technology that's kind of driving the currency, but it's basically a digital asset that you can use sometimes to exchange goods and services online. Sometimes, there's not a lot of adoption of companies accepting cryptocurrencies. So a lot of it is what people are doing is buying and holding because the value's been going up over time. There's the big believers in crypto believe that this will continue to grow and be sort of like a universal decentralized means of transacting money. But it's not that new even. It's just sort of breaking into the mainstream, but it's even, it's mainstream in some cities and markets. But there's so much more kind of potential, I guess, in terms of people adopting it. But it is like, it's more volatile than regular investments, right? And so there's things there, again, that we want to make sure there's context, there's education. So we'll have, cards on the different crypto pages that explain who's behind it, when it was founded, what about how much is in circulation. There's all these things that go into it because the decisioning around making investments in crypto is very different than stock market investing.
I know. I'm like, I like the name.
I honestly, that's what I do. I was like, orchid. I love flowers. Literally.
Yeah. A lot of it's reputation, branding, hype. There's there are things though. There's reasons why people make certain decisions and have different beliefs. I know with Ether, your Ethereum, it's people believe it has a lot of broad applications. And so they believe in it for that reason. Bitcoin people have different reasons. So kind of digging into that is a lot different of an exercise than a company reporting its earnings or looking at, okay, Lulu exceeded their sales targets, athleisure's growing. I can make a decision based on those things. This is much different. And for a lot of people, it's completely new terrain.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of cool that we're living through a time where currency is changing.
Yeah, it's huge. I even think it's going to pave the way for something different. I kind of think it's going to be crypto's like a bridge. But for you personally, so you said you're a little bit less risk averse. So that means how are you doing it each month? Are you just adding in a certain amount? Are you looking at different companies? For people listening, that are just starting to get into this, maybe they have $300 or $100 they want to invest every month. Do you suggest that they look at companies that they're really into, or what would you suggest as their monthly maintenance?
Yeah, I can't give direct advice, but what I do is I'll set sort of just goals for what I want to add to my brokerage account. On the 401k side, I've kind of set it and forget it. I just when the money comes out, I don't think about it. I don't spend it. But I think what's cool about public is you can kind of add as you can. Maybe one month you have a little more money. You decide to put some more in. Another month, okay, I'm going on a trip. I'm going to go there. I think, it's important to save, but I'm a big experiences person too. And I believe that investing in an amazing experience, whether it's a concert, that's something I'll always do. It's a trade-off. But you can go gradual. And the biggest thing, I think, start small. It's not, a lot of people talk about being early in investing because of compound interest. And of course, but there's also a compounding effect of your education the earlier you start. So even if it's only a little bit of money and it's not going to materially change your life, that education over time is compounding too. And I think that's a piece where people think, I don't have enough money to invest. They think they need this big chunk of money. But starting small could just get you going and get you smarter about it. So when you are earning more, you do come across the money you want to put in, you're already at a different stage.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any stories of users that have, really either learned a lot or have made investments that have just really just been kind of that they've learned, invested, and then just gotten back so much, or just any user stories that we can leave our listeners with?
Yeah, we have actually a really cool program going on now with an amazing nonprofit called Commonwealth. And they're a research-led nonprofit that is looking to kind of close the gap in terms of underserved communities and financial products. So as part of the program, 300 women of color were given a portfolio on public for free. And that just kicked off about a month ago. But seeing their conversations in the app have been incredible. They're helping each other out. They're asking questions. We have a chat group feature in the app. So they're in these chat groups together, which is amazing because they can kind of collaborate with each other there in a safe space. and also in the feed. And we also have some amazing mentors signed on. Milana's one of our mentors, who some other great members that have stepped up as mentors to these women. And just seeing kind of their progression, even in the last few weeks, has been incredible. And that's sort of like a microcosm of what we see every day with people just getting started. And, I'll follow a bunch of our members, and I'll think back of like when they first joined, and their evolution is incredible. Another member who's actually quite prominent is Iskra Lawrence. She's like the face of the Aerie brand. She joined, I want to say, about a year ago. And her first posts were all about, hey, I'm just getting started. Does anyone have any like pointers or resources? I looked the other day and she was like comparing three stock charts, talking about trends. Like she's like on it. And what's amazing about her is she's got a big community around her. She's like bringing them into the process. So that kind of evolution on the education front is amazing. And we see it every day.
Wow.
So cool.
That's amazing.
So cool.
That is so amazing. Well, we're so grateful to work with you guys. It's been so much fun. And yeah, it just feels like the right fit for our community. It really brings in that community element. And I do love that you guys have great representation. Like, we know amazing people that love and use the app, and investing has been something that is deeply important to me in my future, especially as people that run our own business and kind of worked, as contractors for a while and now this. So we love working with you, and we're so glad that you came. Where can people connect with you?
Sure. You can follow us on Twitter at Public, Instagram, Public app, public.com. If you don't have the app, give it a download. Everyone starts with a free slice of stock. So we hope to see you in the community there soon.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was such an incredible conversation with Katie from public.com, which is the platform that we use to invest and also in crypto.
Yeah. And if you want to receive $10 in free stock in one of the 9 popular stocks, pblc.co/almost30 is where you'll go to download the app. Again, it's super simple. It's very confidence building, especially if you're new to investing. I'm excited to welcome you, pblc.co/almost30. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you. Make sure to visit almost30.com for more from us, to connect with others in community. And as you probably know, we are opening up memberships soon. So stay tuned for that. We will see you at Camp Almost 30 on January 22nd. It is free. Make sure you sign up now.